Welcome to Hard Script.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. Dinner was still warm. Roasted chicken, steamed vegetables, garlic bread, nothing fancy, but made with care. I'd just come home from a 10-hour shift at the site, boots still dusty, shoulders aching. I told her about a near miss we had with a loader, laughed about how Mike dropped his phone into wet cement. She barely looked up. Her fork tapped the plate rhythmically. I paused. She was scrolling. Probably Instagram. Maybe TikTok. Then, without even glancing my way, she said it. Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't excite me anymore. No pause. No build-up. Just that. I asked, quiet. Because I work too much? She shrugged, still looking at her phone. You've just become kind of ordinary. It wasn't said cruelly. Just casually. Like she was reviewing a pair of shoes she no longer wanted to wear. I didn't answer. Didn't push the plate away. Just sat there. That moment was louder than any argument. Later that night, while she filmed another story in the bedroom mirror, talking about inner fire and choosing your energy, I sat in the bathroom and opened her Instagram profile. I hadn't looked at it in months. Maybe years. But now I did. Every highlight was curated. Fitness goals, Bali dreams, feminine energy, reposts of men giving advice on how to be a high-value woman. And the accounts she followed? Alpha men daily. Masculine polarity. If he chases, he's weak. Fantasy after fantasy. She wasn't looking for a husband anymore. She was chasing a storyline. She used to say she felt safe with me. Now safety bored her. She wanted danger. Not the kind that pays bills, holds her at night, remembers her coffee order. The kind that stares into a camera with six-pack abs and tells her she's divine while selling protein powder. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to, but because I couldn't look at her and see what I used to see. She was chasing filters. I was chasing reality. And for the first time in a long time, I realized we weren't in the same movie anymore. Only one of us was still playing a role. The other had already walked off set. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Not the next morning either. She acted like everything was normal. Made her smoothie, adjusted her ring light, filmed a quick clip about morning gratitude. I watched from the hallway, listening to her call herself a vessel of feminine magnetism. Then she looked into the phone and smiled, flawless, wide-eyed, glowing. That smile used to be for me. When she left for her gym session, I sat down at the kitchen table, opened her Instagram again, and started scrolling slower this time. Not out of jealousy, but curiosity. I wanted to understand the algorithm she'd started living by. Video after video. Men with square jaws, leather jackets, and voices dipped in confidence. They said things like, a real man dominates energy, or, if you don't chase, she'll crave. Half of them looked like actors auditioning to play mob bosses. The other half just looked hungry, for attention, for admiration, for power. Not love. And under each video, thousands of comments. Mostly women. Heart emojis. Where are these men? If my man was like this. I clicked on a few usernames. My wife had liked those comments. Not once. Not accidentally. Repeatedly. I wasn't mad. Not exactly. But I felt something deeper than anger. Something quieter. Like standing in a house you built and realizing she's already mentally moved out. That night, I tried a different approach. A conversation, not an attack. I asked her, gently, do you want someone else? Or just the feeling you think you're supposed to have? She blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? I said, you said I don't excite you. So, is it about me? Or the idea you have of what a man should be? She paused. I want emotions. Drama. Fire. Like in those videos. I want to feel wanted. I asked, and when was the last time you wanted me? She didn't answer. She just looked down, like I'd spoken in a language she hadn't heard in years. It wasn't rejection. It was disconnection. Like I was speaking from the ground floor while she lived on the digital roof. She wasn't trying to hurt me, but she was gone in a way I couldn't fix with roses or effort. And I realized. I was the only one in this marriage who still believed in the real world. And she? She was scrolling for something she'd never be able to download. The next few days, I kept the routine tight. Work, home, kids, repeat. No arguments. No probing questions. I didn't want to pry into her world anymore. I just wanted to observe what I already knew. She wasn't living with me, she was living with images. One night after dinner, I called my friend Alex. We'd worked together for years, same job site, same overtime grinds, same coffee thermos every morning. He'd been divorced once, long ago. I figured he'd seen some version of what I was going through. I told him what she said, that "you don't excite me" line, the influencer videos, the mood shifts, the silence. He didn't even sound surprised. Just sighed and said, "Yeah, that's the new poison, man. Everyone wants something better than good. Something louder than stable." I asked, "What do you do when she stops seeing you?" His answer was blunt. "You stop trying to be seen. You either leave or become invisible until she realizes what she's missing." And most of them don't. Because they're not looking at you. They're looking through you. That landed. I wasn't being ignored. I was being compared. And not to a man I could meet or learn from, but to an illusion. A fantasy with lighting and music and scripted chaos that could never fit into the life we actually lived. That night, after the kids went to bed, she was editing a TikTok in the bedroom. Laughter echoed from her phone, something about how real men text with dramatic music and subtitles. I stood at the door and watched her for a moment. She didn't notice me. Or if she did, she didn't care. I didn't say a word. Just turned and went into the living room, where silence didn't feel like a punishment. She used to say I grounded her, that I made her feel safe. But lately, safety wasn't sexy. Real wasn't romantic. And somewhere between dinner prep and dental checkups, I'd become the man she didn't want, not because I failed her, but because I wasn't selling a dream. And dreams, as perfect as they look through a screen, never have to do dishes, never get tired, never forget birthdays, never argue about who left the light on. But I do, because I'm real. And maybe that's exactly why she stopped wanting me. I started noticing things, little details I used to ignore, or maybe just chose not to see. The way she smiled at her phone, not at me. The tone she used with strangers in the comments, so warm, playful. And the silence she brought home, like a fog only I had to walk through. It wasn't cheating, not technically, but it felt like I was losing to something that didn't even have a face. Just filters and ring lights. One night I stayed late at work. Not because I had to. I just didn't want to go back to a house where I felt like an extra in my own life. When I got home, she was already asleep, or pretending to be. Her phone, glowing on the nightstand, showed the last app she opened. TikTok. Same as always. I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about that first year together. Before the kids. Before the influencer tips. When dinner meant conversation, not content. When her laugh was real and not followed by a second take just in case the sound didn't hit right. I missed that version of her. But I knew that woman wasn't coming back. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't think she needed to. A few days later, we tried to have another conversation. I don't even remember how it started, some casual question that turned sideways. She said, "I just want to feel alive." I nodded. "And you think I'm what's making you feel dead?" "No," she said. "You're just steady, predictable. It's not bad. It's just not thrilling." There it was. The real fear. That I'd become so safe, I was boring. And the men she watched online, they looked dangerous, chaotic, magnetic. They didn't take out the trash. They didn't fold laundry. They didn't ask how your day was unless it set up a punchline. I told her, "I'm not them." She said, "I know." And then she looked down like she regretted saying anything. But I didn't. Because I'd rather be resented for being real than worshipped for being fake. I went to the garage after that. Just sat in the quiet, hands still calloused from the day's labor. I built cabinets, shelves, fixed old tools. The kind of work that doesn't ask you to be exciting, just steady, present, real. And in that silence, I understood something. She wasn't looking for me anymore. She was looking for a high. A hit of digital dopamine dressed as romance. But I wasn't her fix. I was her husband. And that, somehow, stopped being enough. That weekend, I left without a fight. No screaming match. No suitcase thrown down the stairs. Just silence and a note on the counter that read, "Staying at Mark's for a few days. Tell the kids I'll call tonight." Mark was the kind of guy who didn't ask too many questions. He handed me a spare key, poured 2 whiskeys, and turned on the game. No need to explain why a man walks out of his house carrying nothing but his truck keys and a tired look in his eyes. For 3 days, I stayed quiet. Took long walks. Fixed up a leaky faucet at Mark's place. Sat on the back porch and watched the sky turn orange, then deep blue. I didn't post anything online. Didn't call her. Didn't text. Until one night, something in me shifted. I opened Instagram, just out of boredom. And there she was front and center. Her latest post said, "I choose to feel alive. I choose to be desired." Beneath it, some slick-looking guy with a podcast mic had commented a fire emoji. She liked it. Pinned it. It wasn't cheating, but it was something else. A declaration. A public rewrite of our story. As if I'd been the cage and she'd finally flown free. So I posted my own photo. Nothing flashy. Just me at a mountain trailhead, coffee in one hand, sunrise at my back. No caption. Just presence. That picture said more than I ever could. It wasn't to provoke her. It was to reclaim space. My space. The version of me that wasn't edited out of her narrative. She saw it, of course. She always did. The read receipt was there. But she didn't respond. And I didn't need her to. Because something was growing in the silence. Not anger. Not revenge. Just clarity. She wanted fire. But fire consumes. I'd been offering warmth, quiet, steady heat that lasts through storms. And she called it boring because it didn't burn bright enough for an audience. I used to think that if I stayed long enough, tried hard enough, she'd come back to the ground. That she'd realize life isn't a highlight reel. That you can't live forever in the glow of strangers' approval. But now, watching that sunrise without her, I understood. Some people don't want a real partner. They want a performance. And when the curtain drops, they're already looking for the next act. So I gave her what she wanted. Distance. Silence. Absence. And in doing so, I finally gave myself peace. By the fourth day, the silence had become its own kind of voice. It said more than anything I'd tried to explain before. I hadn't blocked her. I hadn't argued. I hadn't begged. I just left. And she didn't know what to do with that. That evening, Mark slid his phone across the table. "You should see this," he said, eyes low. I opened the screen, and there it was, her story. A mirror selfie, outfit angled, captioned, "I deserve to feel like a woman again." Comments flooded in, hearts, fire emojis, lines from self-proclaimed alpha males telling her she was a queen, that any man would be lucky to have her. But buried beneath those surface praises was something darker. One profile, faceless, anonymous, started commenting again and again. At first, it was flirtatious, then pushy, then twisted. DMs followed. She ignored them, deleted, blocked, but the messages kept coming. New accounts, new threats. It was no longer admiration. It was fixation. And when she went to the police, they shrugged. Nothing illegal yet. Just block and move on. But this wasn't just online. She knew what real danger felt like now. Not the kind that breaks a heart, but the kind that makes you check your locks twice. I only knew because she called me. Not to apologize. Not to reconcile. She was scared. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Not edited. Not scripted. Just human. She said, "I know we're not, but I didn't know who else would come." And I did. Not because I missed her, but because we had 2 kids asleep in that house. Because despite everything, I was still the man who shows up. Even when it's not my name in the post. Even when someone else gets the likes. I drove over in silence. No anger. No accusations. Just presence. When I walked in, she didn't say anything. She just looked relieved, then ashamed. I changed the locks. Installed cameras. Checked every window. I didn't ask her who the guy was. I didn't care. This wasn't about jealousy. It was about reality finally breaking through the fantasy. For the first time in months, she looked at me not like a failure, but like someone solid. Someone who doesn't vanish when things get ugly. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't stopped needing me. She just started needing attention more. But now, attention had turned on her. And I was the only one still standing between her and a world she never really understood. After I left that night, I didn't wait for a thank you. I didn't expect one. Protecting her wasn't about rebuilding us. It was about doing what needed to be done. I didn't owe her love, but I still had a spine. And that spine didn't bend, not even for memories. The next morning, I got a message from her, not a long one, just a line that read, "I never really saw it before. You were there when it mattered." And I didn't see it. I stared at the screen for a long moment, not out of emotion, but because of how late it had come, and how cold those words felt now that the illusion had cracked. She didn't apologize for the dinner, or the TikToks, or the way she made me feel like wallpaper in my own house. She was just starting to see. And seeing always comes after the fall. Mark told me his wife had talked to her. Apparently, she'd broken down, real tears, not performative, not captured on camera. Just her, raw, panicked, saying she thought I'd eventually come back on my own, that I'd missed the comfort. But the truth was, I hadn't missed it. I'd missed myself. And I had finally found him again. My days had a rhythm now. Simple, clean. I worked. I lifted. I read. I helped my buddy build out his side business. And for the first time in months, my mind wasn't racing. Stillness isn't empty. It's focused. Meanwhile, her page changed. No more glossy motivational quotes. No more dancing reels and designer leggings. She posted less. Looked tired. In one video, her eyes were puffy. No filter could hide that. Some of her followers commented, "You okay?" Others weren't so kind. "Where's the guy you were posting with? Did the alpha male ghost you too?" And like that, the same crowd that had crowned her turned on her. That's the thing about seeking validation from strangers. The applause always fades. And when it does, you're left with silence that echoes louder than any cheer. She was beginning to feel that now. She sent one more message later that week. "I think I confused admiration for love. And now I can't tell the difference." I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. But because when someone finally understands what you meant, sometimes the lesson needs to sit alone. Quietly. Because truth doesn't always need a reply. Sometimes, it just needs time. The next time we were face to face, there were no lights. No filters. No curated angles or soft focus lenses. Just a public bench at the edge of a quiet park, the late afternoon light dragging long shadows across the grass. She sat across from me, smaller than I remembered. Not in size, but in presence. The woman who once filled rooms with her voice now spoke with her eyes down, fingers nervously picking at her sleeve. She said she wanted to meet. That she needed clarity. I didn't dress up. I didn't come prepared with speeches. I already knew what needed to be said, and more importantly, what needed to be left unsaid. There was a long silence before she finally spoke. She told me she missed the man who used to bring her coffee at 6 a.m. The man who fixed the sink before she even had to ask. The one who stood in her corner when no one else even knew she was in a fight. She said she got caught up. That she wanted to feel alive, feel pursued. That somewhere in the chaos of likes, shares, and comments, she started chasing a version of herself that didn't exist. That she wanted a movie, and I was a documentary. I listened. I didn't interrupt. And when she was done, I said one sentence that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. "You wanted to feel seen, but you stopped looking at me." Her lip trembled. That hit deeper than anything else. She nodded, barely. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her to change. I didn't offer to come back. I told her I understood now. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She just stopped recognizing real things because the world she entered made reality feel less valuable. And me? I stopped waiting for her to remember. Because a man who constantly has to audition for his own place in someone's life, that's not love. That's performance. And I'd retired from that role. I told her, calmly, "If you ever find your way back to yourself, maybe we'll meet there. But it won't be where you left me." Because I've kept moving. She asked, softly, "So that's it?" And I said the only thing that felt honest, "That's peace." Then I stood, nodded, and walked away. No storm. No dramatic music. Just footsteps on gravel and the sound of birds over the trees. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking away from something. I was walking toward it. I came back to the house once more. Not to reclaim anything. Not to return. But to pick up what was mine and leave what wasn't. The kitchen light was on. The place looked the same, but the energy had shifted, like a room that used to hold music but now only remembered the echo. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, like she had rehearsed 1,000 things to say but suddenly forgot all of them. I didn't wait for a monologue. I just walked in, packed my last few things. Some clothes, an old leather notebook, a photo the kids drew for me, curled at the edges but still bright. There was a moment when she reached for my hand. Not to hold it, but like her body forgot we weren't that close anymore. She caught herself mid-motion and dropped it to her side. She said, "It's so quiet when you're gone." And I answered without pause, "That's because I didn't take the noise with me. I just stopped being the one holding all of it back." I looked around one last time. The table still had 4 chairs, but one of them had felt empty long before I left. It wasn't anger that pushed me out. It was clarity. There's a difference between someone who loses you because they never knew what they had, and someone who lets you walk because they believe they'll find better. She didn't fight because she thought someone else would. But here she was, still alone. No TikTok man. No Bali escape. No Hollywood ending. She asked, almost whispering, "Was I really that blind?" And I said, "You weren't blind. You just didn't think the lights would ever go out." When I closed the door behind me, it wasn't with regret. It wasn't even with triumph. It was with a kind of mercy. Some people need to feel the cold before they remember the warmth. And some people need to watch you leave before they realize you were the reason the home didn't collapse. I didn't wait for her to say goodbye. Not because I didn't want to hear it, but because I didn't need it anymore. She could keep her influencers, her stage perfection, her idea of a man who doesn't sweat, doesn't crack, doesn't carry the weight of a family without asking for applause. Me? I'd rather be unseen by the world but known by the right one. And if that never came again, I'd still be whole. Because I finally remembered, I was never boring. I was consistent. I was never too quiet. I was steady. And in a world addicted to noise, that's its own kind of rare. I stood on the porch of my new place, coffee in one hand, sun in my face. No noise. No stage lighting. Just morning air and the quiet hum of a world that no longer expected me to perform. The phone buzzed once, her name on the screen. I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Just because I didn't need to anymore. Instead, I opened a note I had started a few days before. I wasn't going to post it anywhere. It wasn't for anyone else to read. Just something I needed to put into words for me. It said, "Marriage isn't supposed to be fireworks every weekend. It's the slow, steady build of trust, of loyalty, of small things done without being asked, of silent support when words won't fix it. It's not a highlight reel. It's the behind the scenes." I paused, took another sip, and kept writing. You don't leave a man because he stopped entertaining you. You leave because you never saw his sacrifices as anything more than your baseline. You mistook his consistency for complacency, his routine for dullness. But every day, he was showing up, while you were scrolling for a life that doesn't exist. She wasn't cruel. She was misled. She thought emotional highs were love, that drama was passion, that viral posts equaled value. And when she couldn't feel that hit anymore, she blamed the closest thing to her, me. But I'm not here to villainize her. She was chasing something that most people today are tricked into thinking they deserve. Constant stimulation, constant validation, constant better. What she forgot was that real men don't vanish into trends. We endure. We work long hours, come home tired, and still show up for dinner. We listen, even when we're breaking inside. We provide, protect, and pour into others until we're empty. But eventually, even the steadiest man will stop knocking on a closed door. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. I looked up from the note. The sky was wide and open, a pale canvas without filters. I felt something rise in my chest, not pride, not sadness. Just space. A clean breath. She'll be okay, someday. Maybe she'll meet someone else. Maybe she'll find what she's looking for. But I won't be waiting on the other end of that revelation. Because I'm not an echo in someone's fantasy. I'm the real thing. And for the right woman, one who values presence over performance, depth over drama, effort over image, that will be enough. More than enough. Because it always was. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.